misplay back then, right? And this is something that haunts him for a long time. But he is making a really great recovery, I would say, from that tournament. He's a really good player. Like most of the young players I see that we have in the competitive scene, like Amnesiac, like Pavel, right, are really doing great. Anyway, guys, take it away.
Thanks.
He's got a Sunwalker.
He does have a Sunwalker, and he also has Blackwing Corruptor and Azure Drake in his hand, which means we're probably looking at some sort of mid-range Dragon variant, possibly Malagos, etc. But yeah, both of these players looking like they have some interesting quirks in their lineup. This is just looking like a fairly standard-ish Reno Lock build. Is that a corrupted Healbot hidden at the top left? In which case, we're probably looking at the N'Zoth build.
Yep.
But yeah, pretty standard stuff. N'Zoth, one of the core builds of this deck. Obviously, Ken in there as well is a big clue. But yeah, interesting deck in this game at least. Looks like it's down on Xzirez's side here with the Dragon Sunwalker Warlock.
Yeah, the Dragon Sunwalker mid-range Warlock. The only threats it runs is Alexstrasza and Rag in the traditional version, if you can call it like a traditional version. Yeah. But Xzirez is the guy that made a hybrid Warlock. There was the Druidish style. It had like Azure Drake and Zoo-ish minions and double Soulfire back before Standard had hit. And he always makes some sort of creative decks, and this is one of his creative decks that he was able to take to Legend very early on, like, the first day of the season. So I've seen the deck before. I've never seen him play it, so it's interesting to see. And then we have Pavel playing Pavel's Reno Lock that was, like, winter preliminaries that sort of came out, I think.
Right, I think he crushed the DreamHack Austin Swiss with it.
Yeah,
first,
okay, that's
which
where
is
it was.
where everyone picked it up from, and then suddenly everyone who went to the preliminaries went, oh, this deck's nuts. So that's when you just started seeing it all the time.
So we have 2 creative decks made by their creators, being played by their creators.
Yep. And Pavel, as Lothar said just before he disappeared, is probably most famous for that play against Life Coach, where he just gave him a 7/7 Dr. Boom for no reason. But he's a very, very accomplished player. He's someone that I've just randomly ended up with on my friends list very early on, almost a couple of years ago at this point, when he must have been an incredibly young teenager at that point. And every time I checked, he was just top 10 legend, rank 1 legend. And I was just like, okay, this guy's just obviously crazy. And then I was so excited to see him get so far in the European qualifier last year. And it was just like heartbreaking to see it like thrown away on such a silly mistake like that.
It's like we're ignoring the Emperor Thorstein. He had the ability there to Siphon Soul it, but that would surrender all the tempo back to Pavel. He doesn't expect any sort of burst combos from Pavel, I guess, and just doesn't mind having the Emperor proc too much, and he also sets up for the potential lethal the following turn. So Pavel has to be under a bit of stress looking at this Twilight Drake, maybe going to taunt up, expecting some form of aggression to come out, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely a bold move to leave the Emperor alive. I mean, definitely, like, there was a mantra back in the day when Handlock was still a deck that, a 2-turn Emperor Handlock was unbeatable. You just never won if they got a second tick of Emperor off. And obviously, this is the closest deck that simulates that we have in the meta right now. So giving them repeated value out of the Emperor here does look dangerous. But as you said, it was a lethal push in terms of being able to set up with the Azure Drake. But there's a lot of defensive options in Reno Lock that could have shut that down and did.
Yeah, well, he's in a desperate situation, right? So if he were to just Siphon Soul there, the Emperor, and leave up the ooze and not do anything with his turn, does it even put him in a better spot? Does he have any chance of winning from that spot? And that's what he had to really consider there. And he was like, nope, we have to lethal push now. We got to make sure, see if he has it. And unfortunately for Xzirez, Pavel had it.
Yeah, against a more traditional build of Reno Lock, I wouldn't mind it too much because you can actually outvalue Reno Lock sometimes. They actually don't have that many threats in the deck classically until they get to Jiraxxus. But this N'Zoth deck, of course, you know you're not going to outvalue over the long term. So.
Yeah. He goes with the Siphon Soul here rather than developing the Blackwing Corruptor into a bad trade for the Blackwing Corruptor. So going off what you're saying, he is definitely trying to outvalue Pavel, hoping maybe he doesn't have the N'Zoth, knowing that it'll only bring back Karen, I guess. Maybe he thinks it's not a big enough deal. But traditionally speaking, when I've seen the Dragon hybrid Zoo Reno hand Dragon Lock played, it hasn't ran Twisting Nether ever. So it's going to be very hard for him to come back from this board. It does usually have 2 Soulfires, though. And so those can maybe snipe some things. It looks like he's going to go with the Soulfire Ragnaros here, maybe hit the 6/8, or is he going face?
No, he's going face.
He's going 100%. For the dream.
Yeah, this has to be correct. You have 20% to win the game right now. You're looking like at least 95% unfavored in this matchup right now. So take your odds. Like, it seems sensible. He doesn't work out for him. And but definitely, like, I appreciate the try at least. I think it ends up being the right play in that situation.
Yeah, we've been seeing Xzirez this entire game just playing super aggressively, knowing he can't win the value game, and he's trying to play aggressively with a non-aggressive deck, right? It's just what happens when you're playing a control deck against a greedier control deck.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to go for these desperate pushes all the time, and 20% is probably about as close as you're going to get, so...
So the awkward thing here is that even though the Rag play didn't pay off, there's actually just not a super clean removal option available to Pavel. He is essentially having to 3-for-1 himself to get rid of that Ragnaros, but it doesn't really matter in this stage. The card advantage isn't going to be a big deal. He has so much board dominance that this is just a matter of don't die here, and he has plenty of tools in his hand that make sure that he's not going to die immediately.
Yeah, able to get double heal and clear the Ragnaros, but he did have to tickle his board a little bit.
Tickle his board. I mean, yeah, Ken's kind of a cute guy. I can understand wanting to tickle him a bit. Makes sense. And Zoth, not so much. But yeah, this is going downhill very quickly for Xzirez right now. You know, 1-for-1 spot removal answers for the board. Blackwing Corruptor, Siphon Soul, but that's nowhere near going to be good enough. And he's just going to give it up. Pavel's going to square up the series and is going to march forward with this Reno lock into either a Shaman or a Warrior from Xzirez.
Shaman or a Warrior. Typically speaking, Warrior doesn't have the greatest matchups against Reno lock, especially the super greedy ones, because then the control archetypes of Warrior tend to lose to the greedier of the Reno locks. But sometimes against the super greedy ones, like we see Pavel running, you can squeeze in a win with Tempo Warrior, or even Patron Warrior can deal just enough damage, or God forbid, like the Pirate Face Warrior can get in there and get the job done because the Reno Warlock's so greedy. But I imagine we're just going to see the Shaman come out.
I expect so,
Yeah, Face Shaman is pretty good when the Reno Lock runs so many greedy cards that, like, the entire N'Zoth package, but whoa.
That's a jeweled Scarab. I mean, you know, there would be, once upon a time, any sort of mid-range Shaman that you saw appear would get that sort of reaction. But, you know, mid-range Shaman, fairly normal thing these days. But that is a jeweled Scarab, which is an interesting choice. Like, it gives you almost guaranteed a strong card when you play it in Shaman, because you get Hex, Elemental Destruction, Lightning Storm, Feral Spirits.
It's not always a class card, though. Sometimes you're stuck with Jungle Panther, you know.
That was the almost part, the almost guaranteed. Yeah, but if you get some Shaman cards offered to you, which Discover is tilted towards, you are better odds to get class cards than you are neutral cards, then all of the Shaman 3-mana cards are immensely powerful, but still, the initial... You know, basically 0 tempo investment of a 2-mana 1/1 is sometimes just too miserable to make it worth it. But Xzirez disagrees. He obviously likes it, and it may indicate this is like even more tilted towards a slightly controllier build than the regular, you know, Loyan style mid-range Shaman that we've been seeing.
Yeah, we see Fire Elementals, which also tends to indicate super controlly style, the really slow Shaman build.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll be having something like a Bloodlust or other cards like that to help him close out the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what you guys are seeing on stream right now, but we have lost our program feed, so I can hear game sounds happening, but there we go.
The Jeweled Scarab. It looks like he went Tunnel Trog turn 1, the Jeweled Scarab turn 2, picked up a Farsight off the Jeweled Scarab.
Which makes me look like an absolute idiot after saying that you can't be offered a bad card if it's a Shaman card of Jeweled Scarab. But,
in a control Shaman, Farsight's not the worst.
It's actually not terrible.
But how controlled even is it? It seems more mid-rangey with just Jeweled Scarabs right now because he has the Tunnel Trogs in there, which kind of gears away from just pure control Shaman and leans more towards mid-range again.
Right, it's just going to go straight ahead and Farsight here. Picks up Thunderbluff Valiant. That is huge. He now has that play, you know, that Thunderbluff plus Totem play for as little as 4 mana, which is insane.
Disgusting.
Yeah. And Bran is going to come out here just for some initiative on the board. He can make the world's biggest Twilight Drake next turn if he wants to go for it, but that's not something that he probably expects to happen.
Yeah, and the thing about Reno Warlock is they don't have great answers to this, especially if it was a Taunt Totem. It would remove the ability of, like, Shadow Bolt or Power Overwhelming to answer this, but they don't really have single target removal except for, like, Siphon Soul.
I'm just wondering whether Xzirez's brain froze there for a second, because it looked like he expected to be able to kill the Bran. For, like, just for a second, it looked like he was aiming the Jeweled Scarab into the Bran as if he was expecting it to be buffed. So
playing around Argus for the following turn was probably his line of thought, and then he decided, it's probably not worth it to play around Argus, let's just go face. So...
So yeah, the 417 Twilight Drake does come out here. So that's not something that's going to get dealt with very easily unless there's an Earthshock in your deck, which is not something that's too common these days. People are generally moving away from Earthshock, so you know, if your 4-drop ends up getting hexed against Shaman, you're generally okay with that. But what's really important here is that tempo of the 2-mana 3/6 that he's played this game is just ending up being pretty insane in this situation.
Yeah. 2-mana 3/6, pretty good card, and he's just going to protect that with his taunt and look to get more value out of the hero power the following turns. And he's already pushed the Reno Warlock down to 19. And when you see the Jeweled Scarab come out and you see all these cards coming out, you have to be a little afraid of other weird things.
Yeah.
So he's got to be kind of afraid of some potential burst coming out. It's just, Reno Lock's a deck that works a lot better when you know what your opponent's doing.
Yeah.
If you know what your opponent's cards are, you know their burst range, you know how much you can life tap, how aggressive you have to play on the board, or how passive you can be and wait for your Reno heals. When you have no idea what is going on or how much burst is in the deck, you kind of just have to default to pretty defensive.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of pretty weird, powerful things you can do with Shaman. It just kind of ends up that the two strategies that we have, the aggressive strategy and the standard mid range, are just so powerful. But I know you were preaching to me earlier about the good church of Ancestral Spirit, Faceless Manipulator, Shaman. So,
dude,
yeah,
it's really good. In conjunction with a 0-mana 5/5, it's then only 7 mana to get it 2 0-mana 5/5s with Death Rattle turn into a 0-mana 5/5 with taunt.
Yeah, that was a lot of numbers. That's
it's
all
20/20 taunt.
Yeah, for 7 mana.
For 7 mana.
Yeah.
It's
after you've totemed 6 times and, drew a thing from below. And yeah, Hearthstone maths has happened. But yeah, Fire Elemental going face. This is just pressure from Xzirez. As I said, that 4/16 on the board looks pretty, but it's just too slow in this situation, although there is the Shadow Flame available, but even that is a little way off being truly effective. So Shadow Bolt alongside the Demon Wrath is a full clear now, and now suddenly Pavel has stabilized, and now because he has stabilized, that 4/11 is now a genuine problem that Xzirez has to deal with.
Yeah, that guy has been putting in work. Mm-hmm. He's been here since like day one and has just done his job in and out all day clearing things and continues to be a problem. It's pretty crazy how powerful the brand plus Twilight Drake is.
And he's not going to go all out here. He's going to continue to play for the board. He did have the all-in play there, which he basically would say, if you don't draw Reno this game, you're going to lose to my Doomhammer. But he's obviously deciding that he can still win this game in the world where Reno is drawn and is going for the board development strategy, which after your initial burst of that 2-mana 3/6, and so much removal having to be used in response to it, suddenly your 4-mana 7/7 starts to become particularly appealing as well.
The greatest thing about this line of play is he still has enough mana to Doomhammer Rockbiter the following turn. Because he overloads for exactly 2, so he leaves himself the ability to still burst for 10. So it's a lethal setup in not as much of a lethal setup, I guess, as Doomhammering your opponent in the face the previous turn, but forces definitely a reaction. If that 7/7 is able to connect, or if any minion really is able to stick on the board, it would have been lethal. Now, though, he may be getting a little bit desperate here.
Yeah, I mean, the problem now is that it's the same problem as last time. The all-in line, even if there is no Reno, he actually doesn't represent lethal on the following turn. Yeah. He has 10 damage followed by 4 damage. So unless there's a life tap coming out, which there almost certainly won't be after your opponent Doomhammer
Well, maybe to look for Reno.
Right, I mean, yeah, it depends how desperate you're going to get, but I think based on the cards you've seen so far, you will mentally rule out Lava Burst from the deck. That's probably not a thing that you're going to see. So, you'd be down to second Rockbiter, Lightning Bolt, Alakir. These are the things that you'd be playing around. So, with the Doomhammer coming out, Alakir would be unplayable. So, I mean,
this is where
debatable.
The mind games could have came into a factor. You're sitting across from your opponent. If at the start of your turn you just slam the Doomhammer down and rock better than the face twice, emote them and look at them in the eyes, they could be a bit intimidated, try and tap for Reno, and that could be an out for you to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a ton of sense to me, but the 3/6 on the board, not going to get the job done, just gets traded out efficiently right now, and he may have just missed his window because now, even though there is no Reno in hand, as we can see, now any point, if he does go all in with a push to face, he's now allowed his opponent to reach Alexstrasza mana, which is going to shut it down pretty much just as effectively. And
I'm sure he knows Alexstrasza is in the deck. Pavel has been playing this Reno lock pretty much card for card in almost every tournament I've seen Pavel play in. It's like his staple, go-to, best deck that he takes the most pride in and plays very well.
Yeah, I mean, Pavel is considering the tap here, does go for it, so he picks up a Doomsayer here, which is not much use, but now, suddenly, there are real live draws for Xzirez to pick up here, and concealing the information of the Doomhammer Rockbiter has given Pavel a little bit of security to be loose with his life total here, but no such luck, and Xzirez is going to have to find a way to navigate this. Lightning Storm to take care of the 4-1 seems reasonable. You have 2 of them in hand. They're probably not going to get great value over the course of the game. He's still holding back on making that push with the Doomhammer.
Yeah, so patient. Very, very patient. He could have, like, potentially just equipped it and done the 4 damage this turn and maybe cycled the Mana Tide and forced Pavel into a situation where he has to either taunt or die or play Alexstrasza or Reno. And being super patient with it, going for the taunt totem to try and protect his Mana Tide totem, and it works out.
This is so risky from Pavel. I mean, this concealing of the Doomhammer might actually end up working out here for Xzirez because, you know, Pavel is giving no respect to the burst damage in hand there. The fact that he even considered Alexstrasza in face.
I guess when you see a Jeweled Scarab, you don't really expect Doomhammer in the deck altogether, even.
Right. It's very possible.
You expect it to be more of a board-centric, bloodlusty sort of thing.
Which is a viable way to build Shaman right now because everyone and their mother is playing Harrison Jones in their deck. So suddenly, you know, taking that Doomhammer out and just going for more of a strategy on the board using Bloodlust and Thunderbluff does make sense. But yeah, there is the Doomhammer to back all this up. And this board state is just getting out of control here for Xzirez as well, drawing 2 cards a turn now from the Mana Tide totem.
Yeah, and these Ferals, are those stopping lethal? Yeah, it looks like they're stopping lethal from an Alexstrasza power overwhelming play. So good on the Ferals keeping Xzirez alive here. Pavel has to find some other way to set up lethal for the following turn and also be afraid of dying. Only at 13 with no taunts is pretty scary.
Yeah, based on his hand right now, the only play that keeps him alive is Twisting Nether. Because there's no other way to remove the board, which means Flame Tongue, Doomhammer, Rockbiter will get through, regardless of like which minions he leaves alive.
Yeah, he feels most likely that he's safe enough just trading off the board, killing all the minions except the Mana Tides and the 1/1, and then just Alexstrasing himself back up. That's why he goes for that free tap there, look for a little bit better options maybe. But he is debating it still, just figuring out. Shaman's been holding back a lot of cards, and in the back of your mind, you have to expect things. You expect like Lightning Storm that they would hold back, Doomhammer Rockbiter is a combo they would hold back, Bloodlust something they would hold back. So how do you play most efficiently around all these cards that are being held back? And he's going to go with Twisting Nether, assuming that it's Bloodlust, which makes a lot of sense off of the cards that we've seen so far. And he just has no idea about this Doomhammer.
Yeah, but since the board was cleared, Xzirez is 1 damage short right now. Just has the Doomhammer Rockbiter to 10. So excellent, you know, recognition of the situation from Pavel. Like you said, he might not be necessarily reacting to exactly the right situation. He's probably reading Bloodlust, like you said, but still recognize that any greedy play he made there was likely to get him killed. And since he's sat on his own 20 damage burst combo now, having picked up the Faceless Manipulator, he knows that it's just a matter of living for a couple of turns here and he can get the job done.
Yep. So now here's where we see, does Pavel expect the Doomhammer plays or not? Because how aggressive is he going to be with like Alexstrasza or healing or whatnot? And it seems like he's going to be quite aggressive, going with N'Zoth, able to get back all of his Death Rattle minions, set up lethal with the Leroy combo.
All his Death Rattle minions.
All of them. All 1 of them.
All right, Thing from Below is nice. It is enough on the state of the board to prevent lethal. This 9 damage combined with the 20 from the Leroy combo is what's threatening lethal right now. So anything getting in the way is going to be able to get the job done. He does have the Hex to back it up as well.
Yeah, he's able to clean that up and still holding back this Doomhammer.
Yeah, I mean, this is
now the taunt's in the way, preventing his own like lethal setup with top decks now. So I'm really surprised he didn't just Doomhammer down that frog. He must believe Harrison Jones is there or something.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen this whole series. So I'm not exactly sure how it's developed, but you know, whether he is familiar with Pavel's list. You know, like you said, this is a very familiar list that Pavel's been playing a lot. I'm not sure if Harrison is featured in it, but I'd expect to see an ooze.
There's
in
an
there.
ooze, yes.
So, definitely lots of considerations, and like I said, just the mere fact that he was concealing it has allowed Pavel to be a lot braver with his life taps, and so he's been, you know, single draws of things like Lightning Bolt away from winning this game on multiple turns because he's hidden that Doomhammer from his perspective. From our perspective, we could see the all-in play might have worked several turns ago. But he's right to, you know, expect taunts, expect Reno, etc., etc. So
yeah, there's a lot of that in Reno Lock.
Yep.
A lot of taunts, a lot of heal and weapon removal as well. So you see the trade up here with Karen and the offensive Alexstrasza or the defensive Alexstrasza? Offensive.
Wow.
So that's going to be setting up lethal with Leroy Faceless in conjunction with the Bane if the Alex gets hexed. But
unfortunately, he dies.
He dies.
To a very specific combination of cards in Xzirez's hand.
Yeah.
Rockbiter Doomhammer played in the slightly unconventional order, but still gets the job done. That means he can push through along with that lowly 1/1 totem buffed up and get the job done. So, yeah, that concealed Doomhammer for so long.
Yeah.
Baited out the aggressive play, punished him for it. Pretty solid stuff from Xzirez overall.
Yeah, pretty solid, pretty solid. Definitely taking a little bit of an unconventional line. Plays around a lot of potential outs from Pavel, and also just dictated Pavel's line of play. And it all started, the one thing that made Pavel question if there's a Doomhammer, Jeweled Scarab on turn 2. Even though it's not the most impactful card in the world, that's what made him start questioning, is there a Doomhammer, is there not a Doomhammer, is there Bloodlust in this deck, what's going on here? And that's the power in tournament play when people don't really know your deck lists.
Yep. And so when I said that Pavel had some interesting twists in his lineup, this is the deck that I saw him playing in the general players area earlier. This is the Anyfin Paladin, the new build. No Murkai available, of course, but still a potential 30 damage combo with the second Anyfin. And Xzirez, we did see the Alakir coming out here. So, Firebat, how is your experience in the Jeweled Scarab Alakir mid-range Shaman versus standard Anyfin Paladin matchup?
I can't say I've played it too much.
Okay.
The mid-range Shaman, though, it appears to be very similar to standard mid-range Shaman. It has the Alakir, which is a little weird, and it's got the Jeweled Scarab. Other than that, every other card is pretty much in every mid-range Shaman, basically.
Yeah.
So, pretty standard, except maybe Harrison Jones. It's in some of them. I know Loyan played it a lot in his mid-range Shaman build, so... It's going to be a quite impactful card in this matchup, though, just because Paladin as a class, a lot of times in the mid-game, relies heavily on True Silver Champion to not fall behind and be in situations where they don't have to AoE because they have that True Silver Champion. And But it is going to come out with the coin, allowing it to be out one turn before Harrison Jones can be played, so he's going to be able to get both swings off of it and play around Harrison Jones if he so chooses to.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we see a potential totem pass here from Xzirez, just to not give a target. It's saying if you want to use that second charge, you have to hit a totem or a divine shield. If you don't use it, I'm taking it and sending it directly to the museum. So choice is yours, buddy.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Holds back the Tuskar Totemic just to be able to get this Harrison Jones value pretty much guaranteed.
So there it goes, picks up Tunnel Trog, which gives him some gas for the future. No overload cards in hand to go along with it, and he'll be looking to build as an aggressive board as he possibly can. The answers are there for Pavel. Does already have one Equality Clear available to him, but he knows with the amount of long-term value, and this deck represents a threat just by having totems on the board. So you really do need to stretch out your board clears. Because the Shaman player can slow roll you a lot of the time. They can just totem pass a lot of the time when they have Bloodlust, Thunderbluff Valiant, all these threats in their deck that turn those into legitimate threats. So you need to make sure that you have your board clear resources available to you.
Yeah, I imagine we might see a board clear come out here. I mean, it's getting pretty dangerous out there on the board.
Yeah, but it's that situation I'm talking about, right? There isn't a particularly high-value minion on this board, and this is why Shaman can be so effective in this situation, is that it demands to be board cleared with just kind of this board of a few totems and minions that have already been humilitied. And
the scary minion here is the Flame Tongue Totem, because anything you play out there just gets value traded into by the sliding of the minions in over and over again. So at least you get that out of the way. So you get kind of one real card out of the board.
Yeah, but straight away, just the refill is there. Refill number one comes out, Thunderbluff Valiant plus Totem. If this goes down the drain, he has it again on a following turn. He has Tuskar Totemic, which we all know has a guaranteed Totem Golem inside it as well. So his ability to refill the board is pretty insane right now.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the matchup is pretty good for the Shaman player. Just the amount of flooding, the amount of refilling the board. So it is going to be kind of interesting, though, as the Shaman player here starts kind of running out of resources a little bit, but he doesn't have to commit the second Thunderbluff. He can save that for the second reload like you were talking about.
Right. Again, choosing to just go face with the 3-1. He looked like he potentially was playing around Consecration, wanting to send some of the damage in, so he was able to clear it on a following turn. But if he really needs to at some point, he can Hex that thing, but I'm sure he'll be holding onto his Hex for things like Ragnaros Light Lord, which I believe are in Pavel's list, or in the list that most people are playing of this deck. So definitely some high-value threats that he needs to get rid of later. But now the Murloc charge begins. I think this is the first Murlocs that we've seen at this point. So that's one War Leader and one Bluegill that have now been played. And he's going to go ahead and fear the burst damage, forbidden healing himself up for 6 just to get out of range of some burst.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And actually, the board is quite formidable for the Paladin player, able to fight back pretty nicely here.
Yep, and there was, 6, 9, 11 damage in play, 3 totems to get buffed for another 6, so 17 damage would have been represented just with the Thunderbluff hero power. So actually, if he hadn't have forbidden healing, he would have been dead to the Thunderbluff hero power Rockbiter. Did he have mana for all that? No, he was overloaded for 2, right? So
no, he wasn't overloaded this turn.
Oh, he just overloaded now with the... Yeah, so he did have the mana available. So he actually would have died if he didn't go for the forbidden healing.
Yeah, Shaman just always has so much burst, especially if they have the board.
Yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous, pretty quick, and that's why we see the Shaman player here just pushing all face, setting up to do it again, because he's noticed Pavel doesn't have a board clear.
Yeah.
Let's get this Thunderbluff Valiant in a position to win us the game.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I talked about earlier. You know, that early board clear looked great, but it just didn't cripple Xzirez at all in terms of resources. He was just able to keep going, and then with that one board clear gone, they're just, you know, he's been able to just overload the board in full faith that there isn't a second one coming down.
Yep.
And Pavel here is going to cycle the cheap Solemn Vigil, 3 mana here, try and pick something up. He does have the humility for the 7/7, so yeah, Consecrate would be his dream draw. Doesn't get it though.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough. He can't be happy looking at this board and looking at the cards in his hand. It's just... And Xzirez is set up to be able to kill him next turn. He's overloaded for exactly 2, leaving him 8 mana to go Thunderbluff Valiant, Hero Power Rockbiter, get that damage combo in, and take care of business. So I imagine Pavel's got to be thinking about if he wants to heal or not this turn, and I think he's got to do it.
Yeah, I mean, what else does he really want to commit mana to this turn? He could play True Silver if he wants, but it feels like getting the extra healing out is more valuable in that situation. So yeah, he does go ahead and heal, but just more value off the top for Xzirez. More pressure, more tempo, more huge threats coming out. And he's like just demanding a board clear every single turn. Pavel is doing what he can, you know, what this deck kind of does best, which is stall for time until you draw those board clears, but he's running out of time very quickly.
Yeah, land hands is not the answer he needs. The Shaman is able to do so much damage if the board sticks around. We can just look at the Thunderbluff Valiant there.
He can't do it, though, right? He can't Thunderbluff Hero Power on this board.
Why? He gets... oh, yeah, the board's
okay, well, now he can.
Yeah. Oh, maybe a bit of a mistake allowing himself to be open to that. How much damage is it, though? Maybe it's not enough.
Many damages.
It's only 5, 6, 12, and then 13, 14, 15, 16. It's only 16. 17, 18, 19.
Yeah.
So not close enough. So he is just going to push damage, hold back on it. Maybe not even make a totem here so that he doesn't have one of every totem, but I guess... And then it kind of gives it away a little bit.
Yeah, not much value. Like, you know you're getting the healing totem there, and there's not really a great deal of value in it, but you... Finally the Consecrate comes out. But yeah, I was just going to say, not a great deal of value in it. You're only healing the 1/7 back up, so... Not a great deal of relevance there, and that Consecration may have just flipped everything on its head. That Lay on Hands didn't look like it was going to be enough, but it did find that one turn, and it did cycle him through to that Consecration exactly when he needed it. So now he is actually starting to represent a threat of his own, but again, yet again, the board is back immediately from the Shaman.
Yeah, 0 mana, 5/5 coming out as well with the Thunderbluff Valiant. Just so much power tempo all in one turn. The Thunderbluff Valiant adding extra value to your board, and 0 mana, 5/5 obviously adding lots of value to your board. And not only that, but also protecting your Thunderbluff Valiant.
Yeah, so this is War Leader number 2, and we've seen Bluegill number 1 being played here. So I don't think he can get out of range here for like a double anything finish. Can he take enough damage off the board using what he has? He only has 2 attacks he can make this turn with the Murlocs plus the 3/3.
Okay.
So the 6/3 goes in, the 5/4 kill. I mean, we're not killing...
Kill both the totems, right?
Yeah.
So you kill the 5/5 taunt, and then you kill both the totems to try and eliminate as much damage as possible. That leaves Xzirez with 3, 4, 5 damage on the board, and Rockbiter.
Yeah, so you're actually okay, and then suddenly you are threatening the anything for the second time to just get lethal here. 2
Bluegills and 4 War Leaders it's going to be. So
that's 20, right?
Yeah, that's 20.
Yeah.
20, yeah. So 2 10 damage Bluegills. So Taunt Totem could be a mess.
Yeah, I mean, even like the decision to hex, he can either hex a war leader to take a war leader out of the pool, or he can even hex one of his own minions just to tank 10 damage if he's expecting the second anything. But if he's done his maths properly, he knows he's not dead to anything number 2 here. So there's no reason to super panic about it right now. But that war leader on the board is a possible thing that you might just want to remove from the graveyard by transforming it instead of killing it.
Sure, yeah. Then you have to worry about, like, Tyrion ruining your day if it comes out, though. So you're not dead to it. So I really like holding back the resource, saving Hex for potential Tyrion or things that could get your opponent out of this situation, whereas the Anyfin doesn't get him out of it. Well, it might with the clearing of the board, I guess. But
but once the second Anyfin has been used to clear, how do you ever lose to this deck, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that must be his thought process. And Pavel is looking like he's going for the second Anyfin to clear. And then the storm's going to come down. And if all the Murlocs are dead in the storm, it's going to be really tough, honestly.
Yeah.
But maybe you can, if you run Tyrion, you have Ragnaros the Light Lord, maybe you run the Fire Lord too, maybe get one more bomb in there, I guess, and you just have enough bombs to outlast the Hexes. I could see it working out. Or maybe your opponent doesn't have Storm, so it's a pretty good risk to take in those situations as well.
Yeah, sure. And because of the way he traded, he actually gave himself outs to Storm anyway because he took out the Spell Power Totem. But the second Rockbiter being picked up by Xzirez there seals the series. That was a pretty awesome series. I enjoyed it. We got to see some wacky stuff going on, some really like back and forth games, swingy stuff, decks that we don't always see every day. But well played by